Good evening, everybody. Welcome in to Live and Learn. Hope you're doing well on this Thursday, January the 16th. First month of 2025 is already half over. Crazy. But we have a big weekend on tap in the world of sports with NFL Divisional weekend, one of the best weekends of the year, if you ask me. Should be for pretty interesting games. We got some larger spreads that we'll get to later on in the show. We'll talk about picks, bets going into the weekend. So we'll get into that a little later. We'll also talk injuries for these teams going into the games this weekend. We're also going to get into tail end of the show. I'm going to talk some UFC and best bets for UFC 311, the first pay-per-view of 2025. If you even like fighting, it can give you some gambling tips, make some money. But also, it's 2025. Give fighting a chance. It's growing astronomically. It's so popular. It's fantastic watch. I'll be watching with some friends this weekend. Looking forward to that. But UFC 311 at the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles. Good for LA. They got the Rams winning, which was good. Now they get an event this week. The Lakers won a game last night. That doesn't happen often. They won a game. So good for LA to start seeing some positive things after the awful wildfires that are technically still ongoing. But some positive news on that front for Los Angeles. However, quick hits, number of little things, but we'll start with something that came out today. The Toronto Maple Leafs this morning placed former captain, now second-line center, John Tavares on the injured reserve. He's now on there for at least 1 week, so he's out the next 3 games, possibly more, after he fell awkwardly in a power play drill, which is funny, and I'll tell you why that's funny in just a bit. But the Maple Leafs lost on Tuesday to the Dallas Stars in a game where they were pretty quiet, pretty sleepy through the second and third periods, and they didn't deserve to win the game, and they didn't. But now they lose Tavares, who's been excellent all year long. They've lost 3 in a row, and they welcome back Sheldon Keefe into the fray tonight. His first game back in Toronto. The Leafs are 2-0 against the Devils this season, but both of those games were in Newark. So, Fraser Minton was recalled. He will not play tonight. He's a healthy scratch. Connor Dewar comes in the lineup. Max Pacioretty will also return after being a healthy scratch on Tuesday or rest. But if you don't play and you're healthy, that's a healthy scratch, if you ask me. But let's not nitpick, even though I just did. Where does this leave Toronto? Well, you see one injury and it makes it very real because you go Matthews, then you see Domi, you see Dewar, and you see lines that you really don't like all that much, that aren't that threatening. And John Tavares had an awesome season. He's been lesser as of late, slowing down a little bit, kind of like Pacioretty, kind of an older guy that's lost his legs a little bit. But he's still effective on the power play. He still plays second line minutes. He can still win 60+% of his faceoffs. He serves a great purpose to this team. And when he's not around, it is glaring. I think on the back end, it's not so glaring without Jake McCabe, despite the fact that they didn't win a game without him. It's because I think their defense is better than it's ever been in the Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Morgan Riley era. They have more depth. I thought the Toronto Maple Leafs' best player the other night was actually New Brunswick's own Phil Myers, who I think had his best game as a Leaf. Had 4 shots, jumped into the play, was good defensively, was physical. He was one of the few guys after the 20-minute mark that had any life, that had any sense, had any purpose in the game. He played with it. But I think this is an opportunity. Fraser Mitten will be playing tonight. That's just me. And it's not like, he had to catch a flight and he was on the morning skate. The Marlies play in Toronto, so it's not a long commute. Same apartment I'm assuming he's living in. Same thing, all the same shit. Just a different practice arena. So I'd be playing Fraser Mitten because personally, Dewar and Lorentz, you have a lot of the same guys. But again, no nitpicking today. What I think this does is, in a perfect world, I think Brad Treliving wants Max Domi to play the wing. And I understand that. I don't think that Max Domi is at his best on the wing, and I might be in the minority in that opinion. But I think I like him playing center because he's a little more free-flowing. He can make things happen a little bit better. But he has his ups and downs as a player and mistakes that he makes, and the fact that he will never shoot the puck certainly does not help his case and certainly does not help him when it comes to statistics or driving a line. But the Maple Leafs need another centerman, and this just makes it more and more obvious. And what I think optimally for the Maple Leafs, because they're going through their stretch, and as much as I think Leafs fans would like their stars to not be children, that's not going to happen. Mitch Marner plays like shit. The team plays like shit. He said, I thought I liked our effort. It's a lie. And he can't face the music, so it's just easier to do it this way. After the other night, William Nylander says, why is everybody freaking out? It's only 3 games. Okay, it's only 3 games. Sure. But also, it's 3 games. You lost them all in regulation. You had a 6-point lead over Florida. It's now 1 point. You've played the even amount of games. Also, Tampa's back in the mix in the Atlantic Division. You could have grabbed a stranglehold going into the 4 Nations. You haven't now. Oh, and now you get New Jersey, a good team. You don't think they'd like to win for Sheldon Keefe, his first trip back to Toronto? You get Montreal on Saturday. Used to be an easy game. Used to be a cupcake opponent. They're not anymore. They've won 8 of their last 10, and they have points in all 10 of those games. Every time they hit the ice, they come up with a point right now. Credit to them and credit to Martin St. Louis, because I thought he was going to get his walking papers. But to me, it's always been bit piece ads. Guys that didn't make a huge difference, guys that weren't all that great. Think of Plekanec, think of guys they've gotten at the deadline in the past. I think if the Leafs, and they believe they can win, they need to be shopping for a number 2 center so that John could be a 3. If they really want to win. Could they win around by getting, a Yanni Gourde? Could they beat, let's say they win the Atlantic, which I still think they will, and they play in Ottawa, or they play a Columbus in the first round. I think they can beat those teams with the team that they have now and a Yanni Gourde addition and maybe a minor addition on the back end. Definitely possible. But do I think you're going through 4 rounds winning a Stanley Cup with Domi as your third line center and John Tavares as your number 2? I don't. I don't think you're beating Florida that way. I don't think there's a lot of teams that I'm not so sure you're getting by with that lineup and the way those pieces kind of come together. So at the end of the day, their stars have to be great in order for them to win. No doubt about it. But one of their stars is William Nylander, and William Nylander's been garbage for about 10 games. He played 22 minutes the other night. I couldn't believe it. Didn't deserve 22 minutes, didn't play with a whole lot of effort, didn't play with a whole lot of jump. And yet, Craig Berube continued to put him on the ice. Craig Berube, the disciplinarian, the guy who's tough on players, the anti-Sheldon Keefe, really hasn't shown a whole lot of being a hard ass. He doesn't bench guys. He doesn't healthy scratch guys. He's a player's coach, some might argue. I don't think any player on the Leafs in particular loves playing with John Tavares 5-on-5. And nobody will admit that publicly, but I believe that to my core. Because Mitch hasn't done it in like 2 to 3 years. It's always Mitch and Austin. And I don't think Willie loves playing with them either. If you look at John's statistics this year, it's a lot of goals that are on the power play. It's a lot of production that's on the power play. 5-on-5 is a different story. I think he's a valued piece, but I don't think people love being on a line with. I don't think you're stoked that you go, yes, John and William on the same line. They're so threat. I don't see it that way. So the question is, can you get somebody better? And it's very difficult. Because I've heard Ryan O'Reilly. That's not happening. Number one, I don't think Nashville is going to trade Ryan O'Reilly, despite the fact that they've had a pretty awful season to this point. I don't think they're trading off everybody. I don't think Barry Trotz is going to... I mean, you can't blow it up. You have a bunch of guys that are over 30. You got to hope you can retool a little bit, and next year will be a different year. Can you be Washington? Can you be... Looking this year, can you be Minnesota? Can you be Minnesota, who weren't that close to making the playoffs last year, and they've had an awesome go through almost 50 games. And they're going through tough times because they have a lot of injuries right now, and I feel for them because I like their team and they play hard. But could you be next year's Minnesota Wild, where you play really in a really tough division? Could you win some of those games that you lost this year? Possibly. No guarantee, but possibly. So it's not going to be O'Reilly because he's not going anywhere. And again, we've talked about this. Not many teams are out of it yet, so it makes it extremely complicated on what you're going to do, who you're going to try to acquire. I hear Brock Nelson. Okay. I don't hate Brock Nelson, but here's the thing. If Toronto trades for Brock Nelson, you go, oh, well, Nylander's got somebody to play with. Okay. Brock Nelson's not really a passer. Brock Nelson is a shoot-first centerman, and William Nylander is a shoot-first winger. Is that going to mesh? Is that going to work? I don't know. I don't see a great fit there. Now, maybe it works if you break up Marner and Matthews, but God forbid you do that. I mean, that's sacrilege. That's stomping on Jesus' grave on Christmas. I mean, that's not happening. Come on. I can't even pitch that idea, Noah. That's criminal to think about. I know, lock me up. Oh my God, it's a travesty even to consider it. But Brock Nelson's, it's not going to work, those two players. I'll tell you right now. I don't got to think about it. It's not going to work. Pittsburgh. We've gone through Pittsburgh. Who do you want on Pittsburgh? Putting two stories together. Pittsburgh, led by old Kyle Dubas, put Tristan Jarry on waivers yesterday. Which is technically the second time this year. It's a technicality. But technically it's the second time because they sent him down for a conditioning stint in October. And that's basically, you suck at the NHL level so much, we're sending you to Wilkes-Barre because we can't put you in our net anymore. But they lost so much faith in this guy, so much faith, that they just went, yeah, no, enough with him. And he's still got 3 years left, over $5 million a year. I remember that free agency, so I did, and I said, this is such a stupid contract, and it was so stupid. But you had to get that goalie. You had to get your goalie of the future. He benched multiple times the year before. No, had to have him. Oh, that's funny. It's good stuff. Pittsburgh. Beyond that, I mean, Pittsburgh's raw. Unless you're getting Crosby, which I wouldn't say no. I don't think it's crazy if Toronto tries. I don't think it's happening. But make the call. Make the call. But other than that, I don't want anybody in that team. They stink. I don't want anybody. Flyers. I hear Scott Laughton. I like Scott Laughton. But he's a third to fourth line center. And he can't go any higher than that. So again, Scott Laughton is Yanni Gourde, is Thomas Plekanec. It's similar. It's not a push over the top. He's got 9 goals. He got 23 points in 45 games. Not bad for Scott Laughton. But that's not changing your team. Philly will trade him, and somebody will get a good player. But I look at it like if Colorado got Scott Laughton, because I like their foundation, that would work. Because they could use somebody like him. But I just think it's different in Toronto because I don't think they have a true number 2 center. And I believe that all year. Out west, got to look at teams like Seattle. Maybe. Do they have anybody you really like? Jared McCann, good player. Not having a great year in Seattle, but nobody is. They don't score in Seattle, quite frankly. But they could have had Jared McCann, but they let him go. St. Louis still in the mix for a playoff spot. I don't think they're going to make it, but if I'm St. Louis, I'm not trading Dylan Holloway. Because I like Dylan Holloway. Take Braden Shen if you want, but I don't really want him. Jordan Kyrie's a winger, doesn't really solve the issues. Again, it gets thin. It gets really thin. Utah. I think Utah likes their team. I've heard their GM, Bill Armstrong. I think they're going to try to make the playoffs, even though they're 6 out. And that might be a questionable strategy, but I think they're going to try. Vancouver believes that they make the playoffs. Calgary's in a playoff spot right now, so I don't think they're in any real rush to trade anybody. And if they were going to trade anybody, it would probably be Nazem Kadri. And I don't know if the Leafs want to take on another aging player with many years left on his deal. Quite frankly, I don't know if it would be a very smart proposition for the Maple Leafs to do that. So again, when you go down the list, it gets tricky. There's not a whole lot of options. And that's not to signal death, because anything can happen, but I think it's a tough road when he's your second line center, and you know that nobody is going to come around the corner that's any better than him. And they'll miss him tonight, absolutely. You'll see a clear difference without him being available. But they do get Jake McCabe back tonight, who returns after a concussion. Head injury, upper body injury. He suffered against the Flyers, but he returns tonight for the Maple Leafs. I say this all the time, but there's just games that you know the Maple Leafs are going to win. They'll win tonight. They're playing New Jersey. Keith's back in town. No Tavares. They've lost 3 in a row. They'll win tonight 4-5-2. They'll get off the schneid. And I think for them, you got to think big picture. Because yes, you have to build for the future, and yes, you got to think about what's around the corner. And as general managers, you're thinking long-term and short-term. The East is wide open. And I truly believe, I still believe that. Because the Washington Capitals have been as impressive as anybody this year. If the season ended today, they would win the President's Trophy based on points percentage. The Washington Capitals. The Washington Capitals, a team without a superstar. Washington Capitals, whose one of their best players is 40 years old and he's chasing a goal record. Their best player might be Logan Thompson, their goalie, who wasn't named to Team Canada somehow. Jacob Chikrin's been good as well. And Dylan Strome. And Connor McMichael. And a bunch of guys that you wouldn't really think of being awesome have been great. But it's interesting. So maybe you can make it work, because I don't think there's elite teams in the Eastern Conference. New Jersey's good. Absolutely. Carolina, good team. But I think they can be beaten. Toronto's beat New Jersey twice this year. New Jersey's still a small team for my liking. They still lack physicality. Don't love that. Carolina still lacks a viable goaltender that we've seen play well in the postseason. That's an issue. That's a problem. Tampa? Toronto always beats Tampa. It's the one team they beat in the playoffs. They always beat them in the regular season. And Tampa, I don't think is as good as they have been in years past. Still have Kucherov, still have Braden Point, lots of guys that can get the job done. But not elite dudes whatsoever. And Florida, I think, is a good team. They need help on the back end. I'm sure they'll trade for it. But again, it's tough to get those guys. They don't have Montour. They don't have Ekman Larson anymore. You're relying on guys that, quite frankly, would have never suited the team that they had last year. Guys like Nate Schmidt, who Winnipeg was thrilled to get rid of. And Winnipeg's been better for it. But Leafs Jersey tonight, Florida playing Detroit. Detroit lost on Tuesday to San Jose. And new coach, Todd McClellan, came out and said Justin Hall played like crap. And I'm going to tell him after, too, that he did. Didn't mince words, didn't hold back. Number one, I loved it. Again, this doesn't happen anymore. I've been reading a lot lately. Gotten some books for Christmas, and it's a while there I didn't read, and I've probably read 4 books in the last 3 months, which isn't even that good because my mom read like 6 in 2 weeks, but she was on vacation, so I guess she should be reading more books than me. But I like reading. I do. And I've been reading a lot of sports books and read a book on, Mike Keenan. And I'm reading a book on Matt Sundin. And those 2 guys are pretty successful. And Matt said he heard it from Pat Burns the second he got to Toronto. Pat Burns looked at him and drew a map on how to get to the weight room because he was too thin. He wasn't afraid to do it. Pat Burns then said in a presser that Matt looked small and skinny on the ice to the media. That was said, how do you think Matt's played? That's what he said. And Matt said, I knew exactly what he was talking about, and it was a shot at him for not working out enough. And he said he went in that summer, got way stronger, became a better player because of it. It's okay to point out when somebody does something really bad. I always thought on drive homes from games when my dad told me if I played really well or if I stunk, he told me. And I was better for it. I realize that more and more now. But even then, you know going in what the conversation is going to be if you're even somewhat aware. You know how you play. You know how you did that day at work. You know if you shoveled well, if you did something that you told somebody that you were going to do, if you followed through on a promise. You know in your heart, in your being, what the answer is and what you accomplished or what you didn't accomplish. So getting into the vehicle on the drive home, I knew what the conversation was going to be. I knew that it was not going to be good. That it was, I stunk. I knew it on the ice. I knew it on the bench. I just didn't want to hear somebody vocalize it. But I think it's better when somebody does. I think it's better when you hear your successes, but more importantly, your faults. Because those bring character and those make you feel better and make you improve. Todd McClellan was on a winning streak with Detroit, but they lost at home to San Jose, a team you can't lose to, quite frankly, when you're in a race for a playoff spot. It just can't happen. You're trying to make something happen. Trying to go on a run to make the playoffs. New coach. The GM knows he's on the hot seat. The team has been poorly constructed. So many things going against it. And yet here you are. But I appreciate Todd McClellan for doing that, for being honest with Justin Hall, being honest with the media. You don't hear it. Like Connor McDavid threw a dirty elbow to Marcus Johansson last night in a game against, and it was only 2 games in the National Hockey League last night. You might not have seen it. It was a 9:30 start. He should get fined. Marcus Johansson has a concussion. He's going to miss a couple weeks, at least. And I talk about Minnesota is without Spurgeon, and they're without Kaprizov, and they're without Johansson, and Zuccarello's banged up. And they're missing really important players. Faber's hurt right now. They're without so many important guys. And they're crawling through with duct tape trying to stay in the mix, trying to stay in the top 3 in the Central, which is tough because it's the toughest division in hockey, not the Atlantic. Shut up, people in the Atlantic. It's the Central. Go look at what's happening there. There's some good teams in the Central. There's no cupcakes like Detroit and Buffalo in your division. But Connor McDavid should be suspended. He won't be because he's Connor McDavid, because he's the best player in the world. But he should be. It was a dirty elbow. He injured the player. And hardly anything on the ice. He ended up getting a goal, the game-winning goal late, had a 3-point night in Minnesota. And Oilers are red hot. They've won 17 of the last 21. Hottest team in the league. If you look at them now, 2 points back of the Golden Knights. Both teams played 44 games this year. They look scary. And they have a great game tonight in Minnesota. Sorry, in Colorado. Beat Minnesota last night. Back-to-back in Colorado. 2 teams that have been playing really well lately. Colorado is 2 points back of Dallas, 3 points back of Minnesota in the Central Division. But 45 games, you're getting close. Like, you're going to be over 50 games by the time the Four Nations happen. Four Nations goes from the 9th to the 22nd. The trade deadline's on March 7th. So you have like a week and a half, and then it's the trade deadline, and then it's a rush race to the playoffs. Last day of the regular season is on April 17th. A lot of good teams there. Gabriel Landeskog, news on him today. He's skating, progressing, according to Colorado. Good player. Hasn't played in a couple of years. Be awesome to see him get back. Would help their team a ton if he can even give them anything. Anything else I want to touch on in the world of hockey? Oh, the Jets. I want to talk about the Jets. The Jets crushed Vancouver the night 6-1. Kyle Connor had a natural hat trick in the first period at 4 points. Mark Scheifele has the most goals by a Canadian since they named the team. Since they named the Four Nations team, Mark Scheifele, most goals by a Canadian. And he's right up there for points as well. He's having an awesome season. Winnipeg's having a great season. They host Seattle tonight. After 45 games, for most teams, right around there, some few less, some few more, the MVP of the NHL is Connor Hellebuyck. I think he's got to have a great tail end to the season for him to win it. A goalie has not won it since Carey Price. It's rare. Remember, Jose Theodore won one when really Iginla should have won it that year, but the Montreal Riders gift-wrapped it to him. But Connor Hellebuyck, through 45 games, has been the best player in the sport. If you think about it, McDavid missed some time. He's been really good lately, but it's not like he's leading in points. He's still the best player in the world, but if you're looking at this year overall, he has not been the best player. Austin Matthews, missed a chunk of change. Hasn't been all that good since he came back. He's not in the mix. My top three for MVP: 1, Hellebuyck; 2, Quinn Hughes; 3, Leon Draisaitl. That's me for my 1, 2, 3 right now. And it's hard for defense to win it too. But Quinn Hughes has been unreal for the Vancouver Canucks. That team has been out to lunch. Demko never plays because he's always injured. Go figure. Another goalie who can't get his ass on the ice. Infighting, thinking of trading guys. That's one guy who could go to Toronto in a trade, I guess, JT Miller or Elias Pettersson. But if I look at that list, Draisaitl 3, 2 Quinn Hughes, 1 Hellebuyck. Quinn Hughes has to do everything for Vancouver. He's by far their best player. The way he doesn't take contact from guys because he's just so agile and he's so quick on his feet and so smart in his own zone. Him and Cale Makar are light years ahead of everybody else in the NHL. It's those two and then it goes down. A league of their own. But Quinn Hughes has been phenomenal. If you look on FanDuel right now, Nathan McKinnon has the best odds at plus 340. Leon Draisaitl second at plus 350. Connor Hellebuyck plus 360. He's got the third best odds. Should be number one if you ask me. McDavid plus 370. Kaprizov plus 600. Kucherov. You don't even see Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes, can get him at plus 1,700 right now. And again, it's hard for defense to win it. It's hard. Defense never win this award. And Marc-Edouard Vlasic, defenseman, San Jose Sharks, is playing in his 1,300th NHL game tonight. He's had a really good career, has played at the Olympic Games, been in the Stanley Cup final. Long in the tooth now, and the Sharks hate his contract, but that's besides the point. First off, congratulations. Hell of a run. He's still playing. 1,300 games. But the media talked to him today, and he had a smart guy. He's like, all you hear about is the Norris and the points. The top defenseman is always the guy who gets the most points. True. He said, enough of that. It's about time we start a Defensive D-Man of the Year award. Amen, brother. I've been campaigning for this for years. And now a player said, I love it. This should be an award. The Selke Trophy. There's not one for defense. Your name is defender. You are a defenseman. Not an offenseman, a defenseman. So let's award the trophy to what the name of the damn position states that you are. I've seen people win the Norris Trophy that don't. I mean, if Erik Karlsson can win an award more than once, and that award's not selfish fucking team destroyer, then anybody can win the Norris Trophy, and it's not that impressive of an award. Defensive, I love that. It's a great idea, and it should be implemented so that you can recognize. Like Jacob Slavin would have a couple of these already. My guy in Minnesota, Brock Faber, he'll never win a Norris in his career. He could win this. He could win this award. Absolutely. And that doesn't take away from great guys like Lane Hudson of the Montreal Canadiens, who's a stud, who's a point getter, and I love all that. But listen to Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Give a Defensive D-Man of the Year award. Create it. You can come up with some community service, whatever it is, of the year. Come back. Like enough of, okay, you gave to a charity. Good for you. What charity was it? Do I care about it? Why do I fucking care then? If I care about the charity, sure. I mean, come on. Yes, I know. I'm kidding. I love all charities. Well, no, I don't love all charities, but some of them are good. Give to an animal shelter, then we're friends. Otherwise, whatever. Screw PETA. However, love it. Marc-Edouard Vlasic. We're simpatico. Great idea. It's not all about these guys who put up big points that then do nothing, like Erik Karlsson. And I pick on him because the fact that he will have more Norris trophies than Drew Doughty is personally offensive to me. It's personally offensive because Drew Doughty is 10 times the defenseman Erik Karlsson could ever think of being. Since being traded to Pittsburgh, that team has been an unmitigated disaster. Not an opinion, fact. He's a team destroyer. That's what he is. He destroyed San Jose. He's destroyed Pittsburgh. He destroyed Ottawa. For the 50-plus audience, he had one of the worst plus-minuses in the sport, but he had the most points on the team with the worst record, and he won the Norris Trophy. Make that make sense. Anyway. Marc-Edouard Vlasic. I like the way you think. Smart guy. He will play his 1,300th game tonight in Columbus against the Red Hot Blue Jackets. Devils, Maple Leafs tonight. Ducks in Tampa. Edmonton and Colorado. Canucks hosting the Los Angeles Kings in the nightcap of the evening. So some good NHL action tonight. Some good games on a Thursday. All right. Oh, yes. Today, the legendary broadcaster, former player at one point, did not have a great MLB career, but he worked for the WWE at one point doing backstage interviews. If you were a big WWE, WWF at that time fan, he was choked by Andre the Giant doing a backstage interview. The legendary voice of the Milwaukee Brewers, Bob Uecker, died today at the age of 90. He was the voice of the Brewers for 54 years. Crazy. He called their wild card games in October. He was still working in October for Milwaukee. He signed them off. He said, "We'll see you next season." He also was in the movie Major League, which, if you haven't seen it, it's a sports movie. It's about baseball. Charlie Sheen stars in this movie. It's quite good, actually. It's very funny. Charlie Sheen, Dennis Haysbert, his character actor, you'll see. But Bob Uecker plays Harry Doyle, who was on announcing these games. And everybody said how great a person Bob Uecker was. People loved him when he came into a room. They immediately want to go buy him a beer. And 90, born January 26, 19, so 10 days before his 91st birthday. Hell of a run. Really popular guy. People in Milwaukee loved Bob Uecker. He was, he voiced Milwaukee sports, the Milwaukee Brewers, the good times and the bad. Vince Scully with the Dodgers, Bob Uecker was that to Wisconsin. And it's sad, but I also, I have this, I think about that more as I get older, and I think of people that I, really cared about and loved that died younger. I think 90 that's a really good life. It's a really good life. And, rest in power, Bob Uecker, because he carried a great legacy. And I think it's really cool that he was calling games at 90 years old just 4 months ago for the Milwaukee Brewers. Incredible. Before we move to headlines, Australian Open, not going great for Canadians. Denis Shapovalov, Gabriel Diallo, Felix Auger-Aliassime all ousted in the second round. Diallo losing in 4 sets to Russian Karen Khachanov. Denis Shapovalov losing in straight sets to number 16 seed Lorenzo Musetti last night. Neither guy was a favorite in their match. I'm not surprised those two guys lost ultimately. The biggest letdown is Felix Auger-Aliassime, who won the Adelaide Open, defeated multiple seeds to win that, and then you come into this tournament. Was up 2 sets to none, and then loses in the 5th set to Alex Davidovich-Fokina of Spain. Just a meltdown. He's a better player, in particular on this surface. He threw an opportunity away. And that's the difference between Felix and some of these guys. Seeing like Taylor Fritz, American, has taken the next step because he doesn't lose early. He made a Grand Slam final at the U.S. He lost to Sinner, but he made a Grand Slam final, and he went on that run and had that success. You look, and the ladies draw. Sabalenka breaks through. These women that are the best, and they continue to have really good runs in majors. Coco Gauff has her faults, but she does it. He doesn't win the big match. In the majors, he didn't get past the 3rd round last year. He starts this year not getting to a third round. It's tough. It was hot. Goes late into the night. But he wasn't the only one. Last year's finalist in Australia, Daniil Medvedev, who won the first round in 5 sets, was down 0-2, wins the third, wins the fourth. It goes to a 5th set tiebreaker, and he loses the tiebreaker to an American young qualifier, Tien. So 3-time finalists in Australia out in the second round, and it's a massive loss for him. Again, he's won a major, but the major he won, Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, all were not competing. He was up 2-0 on Sinner last year, couldn't close the deal. He's another guy that's frustrating, but again, he's more successful than Felix, but he throws away opportunities, and he's out early. Third round begins tonight. And you have some good matches, quite frankly. Carlos Alcaraz in action tonight against Nuno Borges, who, this is a sneaky match. Borges is a good player. He's not ranked. He's 33 in the world. So he's just outside the ranking system. But he's a good player. I think he'll test Carlos tonight. I could see that going 4 sets, possibly 5. I could be wrong, but again, I think he's a good player. Early morning, Novak Djokovic against Thomas Mašek of the Czech Republic. You also have Jack Draper, the Great Britain, playing Vukic. So on this side of the men's draw, it's really, you see Sasha Zverev, who's very good on the hard courts in particular, Alcaraz, Tommy Paul, the American, and Djokovic. Tonight for the ladies, Sabalenka in action. Let's see. But again, early morning for the ladies. Coco Gauff in action. It's about 4 a.m. against Leila Annie Fernandez of Canada. You can get Leila right now plus 280 as the betting underdog. Coco Gauff has not lost a set yet in this event. I think it's an interesting matchup because both women are very prone to unforced errors. Both women can be a little loose with their forehand. Both women can get frustrated, quite frankly. It's a fun match. I'm setting an early alarm because I want to see this. I want to see these two play. And not to mention, you also have Osaka playing before them, and Osaka's into the third round in a major for the first time in a while. She gets Belinda Bencic, who's another woman who was out for a long time with an injury. Belinda Bencic, who's won a gold medal, who's had some success being a singles player, just been out for a while. So 2 women that were on extended leave now meet in the third round for the chance to go to a round of 16 down at the Australian Open. Big opportunity. You also have Jessica Pegula in action in this half. So Sabalenka clearly leads it when it comes to the favorite. She's won 2 in a row. She dominates Australia. But some fun tennis. And even looking ahead into the weekend, you have Svitolina playing Jasmine Paolini. Tomorrow night, Madison Keys playing Danielle Collins, 2 Americans. Emma Raducanu, who's a U.S. Open champion who defeated Leila Annie Fernandez a number of years ago. She plays world number 2 Iga Swiatek. So those are all matches Friday/Saturday morning. The other side of the men's draw to me is more fun because I think you have some names over there that are interesting. Sinner playing American Marcus Giron. Alec Mickelson, who's had a really good run, the American. He plays Karen Khachanov. Ben Shelton, who I like a lot. Fun player. He's got Musetti, who beat Shapovalov. Taylor Fritz against the guy that everybody loves, the Frenchman, Gael Monfils. Yes, Monfils is not a spring chicken anymore, but he won a tournament, just like Felix, just before Australia. And he continues to do it. He's having a good start to the year. And Taylor Fritz, great player, and he's had a really good run. But Australian Open, fun. Like I said, I'm setting my alarm to get up to watch Layla and Coco Gauff early tomorrow morning. Okay. Let's get to football. The divisional round of the NFL postseason begins tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Saturday. Thought it was Friday. Saturday afternoon at 5:30 in Kansas City, Missouri. The Kansas City Chiefs have not played a real game since their win against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Christmas Day. That was on a Wednesday. They rested their players the next week. They then had a bye week, and now they're ready to go. Since that happened, Patrick Mahomes had a third child. I'm going to get this wrong. Bronze, is it? I was so confident I was going to get this, and I only saw it once. I think it was on SportsCenter. Patrick Mahomes' kids' names. Sterling was the girl, I think. Yes. 3 kids. Golden, damn it. Oh, they do have a bronze. Yes, they do have a son named. That was the second one. Now they have golden. So Sterling, bronze, and golden. Well, he does make a lot of money, so that does make some sense. But he's had a third child. Also, Travis Kelce had LeBron James on his podcast today. So both guys making lots happen. But of course, their goal is to win a third straight Super Bowl, and that starts with the Houston Texans, who in many eyes, including these two, upset the Chargers last week at home. This game, Kansas City's biggest weakness is their offensive line. It has been all year long, and Houston has a very good pass rush. Derek Barnett, Will Anderson Jr., their captain of that defense. Their corners are fantastic. Derek Stingley Jr. and Leicester are both phenomenal. So Houston's defense can make this game competitive. They can make life difficult on Mahomes and that offense that hasn't been very good this year, quite frankly. These two teams met earlier this year, the Saturday before the game on Christmas. So just a little, not even a month will go by between these two teams playing each other. So if you look at the first matchup, if you go back to that game, which I will for all of you right now, because I want to get into what happened that day and kind of the score and everything. That game was on the 21st, so it'll almost be a month between games. And Kansas City ended up winning that game 27-19. They ultimately covered the spread because it was 6.5, and I bet the Texans. But Kansas City won that day. Tank Dell, that was the day he blew out his knee. Very scary scene. He had 6 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown that day. He was having a great game. Mahomes, and that was really where Mahomes started to play better. His last 2 games of the season, I thought, were 2 of his best. They won 27-19, then they won 29-10 against the Steelers. The Chiefs they didn't score 31 points this year. They had 30 3 different times, but they never scored that many points. They never scored 31 points all year long. I don't think they're going to score that many points again because, as I mentioned, Houston's defense is pretty good. Nico Collins is the X factor on offense for Houston. He can make things happen. I also think Joe Mixon is a pretty solid running back. So Houston has faults, and something that can be done is you see a team play and they look good one week and you go, oh, they're going to be great the next week. But you got to remember, the team that got the bye is better than these other teams because that's the reason that they got the bye. So if you go to our buddies over at FanDuel, and you go to FanDuel and you're like, I wonder what this line is going to be. So I said 6.5 was the first meeting. So you go, okay, 6.5. Go to FanDuel. Going to go NFL. It's 8.5 points. Kansas City won by 8 the first time they met. So, and that game was in Houston. This one's in Kansas City. The elements, all that fun stuff. I like Kansas City's defense. I like Houston's defense. Hollywood Brown is back for Kansas City. You also have Travis Kelce. I don't think their offense is threatening, but I think it's good enough. They have enough guys that can make plays. Travis Kelce has the most catches in NFL postseason history at 183. So he's as reliable as it gets, and he typically steps up this time of year. All that being said, I do expect Kansas City to win this game. Kansas City will be hosting the AFC Championship game. They will be waiting the heavyweight tilt that we will get to in a couple of minutes. So my big question is does Houston cover the 8.5 points? I think they certainly can. I do think they can keep this game close. Playing in Kansas City is certainly difficult. It comes with challenges. But if that defense can have some success early, create a turnover, get some sacks, pressure on Mahomes, I think it's a big spread for a Houston team that won their division, whether you like the division or not, kind of irrelevant. They won their division, and I respect their defense. And I think DeMeco Ryans coached his tail off against the Chargers. He out-coached Jim Harbaugh. He's a huge reason why they won that game. He was prepared. He made adjustments. He was locked in. So Saturday afternoon, early game, I like Houston plus 8.5. Kansas City will win the game. If you want to bet the game outright, I'd bet Kansas City, which you can do. You get money line Kansas, but you're not making much money. Minus 460 for Kansas City on FanDuel. I like Houston to cover the spread because I just think Houston's defense can keep them in it. That offensive line, in particular the left tackle position, is a weakness. They give up pressures. Force Kansas City's offense to kind of morph down a little bit. So Kansas City will go to another AFC Championship game because that's what they always do. It's called the Arrowhead Invitational for a reason. But I like Houston plus 8.5 to cover. Late game on Saturday. Ford Field in Detroit. The Washington Commanders, otherwise known as the Washington football team, head to Detroit to play the Lions. Washington, walk-off field goal against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road. First playoff victory since 2005. Only the 6th win ever by a rookie quarterback. Jaden Daniels is awesome. Bobby Wagner was on the injury report. He will play, Dan Quinn told the media today, so no worries on Bobby Wagner, the veteran, the future Hall of Famer. Both teams are pretty healthy. David Montgomery will play for the Detroit Lions. He is back after they thought he was done for the year, didn't have surgery, decided to rehab it. He will be back. So they'll have Gibbs and Montgomery, the two-headed monster. Okay. So, where does that leave us? Washington's a great story. Jaden Daniels is a star already in the league. I love McLaurin. I think Dan Quinn has gotten so much out of this team. But I think the buck stops here. Detroit, to me, at their best, is the best team in the NFL. Prior to the season, I had Detroit and Kansas City meeting for the Super Bowl. If Detroit is healthy, they're the best team in the league. Offense, defense, special teams, coaching, doesn't matter. They're the best. And I look at their group and go, they're getting everybody back. And they got some time to rest people. So they're going to come back fresh and look good. And Washington's great. And they should be able to compete in the NFC East for years to come. But I don't think that they're going to cover the 8.5 on Saturday night. I think Detroit kind of beats them up a little bit and sets the tone for whoever they play next. Whether that is Philly or whether that's the Los Angeles Rams, which would be really interesting and really fun. They will win, and I think they win pretty decisively. I like Detroit minus 8.5. I love their pass game. I love their run game. They really don't do anything poorly, the Detroit Lions. Alex Anzalone's back in the middle of that defense. Aiden Hutchinson's not healthy yet, but sounds like he's going to do his damnedest to be back for the Super Bowl if and when they get there. Marshawn Lattimore is hurt for Washington. He's not playing at his best. Mike Evans tore him up. If St. Brown and him are matched up, good luck. Jamison Williams is a burner. He can make things happen. I like Detroit minus 8.5. Detroit to win this game. Easy enough. Advance to their second straight NFC Championship game. Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock kickoff in beautiful Philadelphia. Rams at the Eagles. Rams fresh off their victory over the Minnesota Vikings in Arizona because of the wildfires. The Rams, who we predicted on Monday would cover the 2.5 and ultimately win the game. Somebody predicted that. Me. So, now we get to this one. Rams, Eagles. A.J. Brown's reading books, getting one catch. They ran the ball well. Jalen Hurts looked discombobulated. Their wide receivers couldn't get open. So, where does this leave the Eagles? Still super talented. Their defense was phenomenal against the Green Bay Packers. They did lose Nakobe Dean, their middle linebacker, for the season. That's a big loss. Darius Slay, great player, could be a Hall of Famer, cornerback for the Eagles. Does he cover Nakua? Or does he cover Kupp? How about Higbee in the middle? Kyron Williams out of the backfield. I thought this might be a 3.5 point spread. I thought we might see 3.5, maybe a 4.5 when I was guessing the line after the Rams won. It's 6.5. It's gone up. It's 6.5 now for the Eagles hosting the Rams. Eagles are so untrustworthy, and they have so many warning signs when you look at them. People in the city, people on the team hate the coach. The best wide receiver and the quarterback on the team don't like one another. That doesn't sound all that great. So there's some weird things going on in Philly. But yet they still have Saquon Barkley. And they had the second best rushing attack in the NFL this year, behind only Baltimore. So, what gives? Rams D-line can get after the quarterback. And what happened last week? Hurts, nobody was open. They got pressure to throw the ball away, and he looked dreadful. I like that Rams defense. They play tough. They're young in the secondary, but they were not afraid against the Vikings whatsoever. Rams-Detroit is such an interesting game for so many reasons. Stafford, part of the Rams, going back to Detroit to try to take away what the Lions have wanted forever, which is to get to a Super Bowl, to win a Super Bowl, something he could never accomplish while in Detroit. I like the Rams plus 6.5 to win, to not only cover the spread, but to win the game on the road again. They beat the Vikings, a team with only 3 losses. I think they're going to beat another team with only 3 losses this upcoming Sunday. Stafford is a gamer in the playoffs. That defense comes to play. Jared Verse is a beast. Kobe Durant can play. Nakua, Higbee was playing great on Monday, made some big catches. Hardly played all year. I expect a close game, a back-and-forth affair between two good teams that can score points and defend quite well. But I like the Rams plus 6.5, and I also like the Rams to outright win the game. You can get the Rams plus 220 money line right now on FanDuel. And then the final game of the weekend. The heavyweight tilt. The Baltimore Ravens head to Buffalo to play the Bills. They met in week 5, and Baltimore won 41-10. Derrick Henry ran for 200 yards, caught a touchdown, ran for a touchdown. This game was in Baltimore. After that, the Bills didn't lose a game until their final game of the season against the Patriots when they rested guys. They won the AFC East for the 4th straight year. Josh Allen might win his first MVP. A lot's gone right. Lamar is phenomenal. You have Derrick Henry, who's such an X factor. They ran for over 300 yards against the Steelers last week. And I think Sean McDermott, who's a defensive-minded head coach, knows that if the Bills don't at least put a stop at some point to Derrick Henry, they don't have a chance in hell of winning the game, regardless of how Lamar plays. If you're giving up 5 to 6 yards a carry on first down, you are screwed. Period. So they are in that predicament, and they know what they're getting into going in. So, in saying all of that, the two best quarterbacks in the league this year. One of them is going to be the MVP. It looks like it's going to be Lamar Jackson to win his third MVP of his career. Josh Allen would still have 0. This game it's after, so it doesn't matter, but this could be the MVP really if you look at it and go, okay, I beat you in the playoffs. Josh Allen's been to 1 AFC championship game. Lamar has been to 1 AFC championship game. Both of those years, they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. Both those years, Kansas City went on to win the Super Bowl. And the irony here is they have to play a really tough team, go up against a behemoth of a quarterback, and your reward for winning is you have to go to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs finally, which neither team has been able to do in the playoffs. So, Baltimore won. And yet Buffalo's been the better team over the last little while, if you ask me. And yet Baltimore is a 1.5-point favorite on the road in Buffalo. 50% chance of snow, about 23 degrees Fahrenheit, time of kick. Typical Buffalo weather. Who the hell knows? This game, I think, is going to live up to the hype. Because all week, it's these two guys. It could be a blowout. It was in week 5. It was. And as I said, if Derrick Henry's getting 5 yards of carry, you are screwed. You're screwed if you're Buffalo because you're not going to win. Both these teams like to possess the football for long periods of time. Because Buffalo will run the ball. It's not just a Josh Allen show. Give the ball to James Cook. Give the ball to Ray Davis. And then Josh Allen can make plays with his legs, and he can obviously throw the football when you have good designs. And you don't need to score a touchdown in 5 seconds. Or you don't need to ask Josh Allen to throw the ball 50 times either. I think one team is actually better than the other. And I'll probably be minority on this. I think the Bills are better than the Ravens. The Bills this year, to me, they feel different. Baltimore is going to score points on that defense, but so are the Bills. Because Josh Allen's playing at a different level than he ever has in his NFL career. At home, you're going to give a team 1.5 points in the playoffs. I like those odds. Fun fact also, Josh Allen hasn't lost a game at home in his NFL playoff career. So, something to think about. Lamar hasn't played great in big games. Neither has Josh. I think Josh has been better. Josh lost a shootout to Mahomes at one time. He was great in that game. Mahomes had the ball last. So, 1.5 points, a pick'em game pretty much. But if you're getting points as a home team, the way they run the football, Pittsburgh got points on those corners. Russell Wilson threw a couple deep passes to George Pickens, to Van Jefferson. They can be there for the Bills, to Shakir, or to Amari Cooper running down the seam. Keon Coleman, a big target. Buffalo doesn't have elite wide receivers, but they have some guys that can make plays. And I also think their running backs are very creative out of the backfield as well. So I like the Bills plus 1.5 to cover at home as the home dog, but also to win the games. I like 2 underdogs to win this weekend. I like the Rams to win in Philadelphia, and I like the Bills to win against the Ravens. I also like the Texans to cover against the Chiefs, the 8.5 on Saturday afternoon. Detroit will win outright, the 8.5. Lay the points. But those are my picks for the divisional round. But this is always a fun weekend, 4 really fun games. And I think we'll have some really good championship games, which is all you can ask for. Going back to Monday with the Vikings losing. Tough break for Sam Darnold. Great season, 14-3. The best record for a team ended up being a wild card team. Then he played horrible against Detroit. Then they played the Rams. He got sacked 9 times. It was an ugly scene for him. Probably cost himself a lot of money. Couple things. I don't think he's going back to Minnesota. I think they're going to stick with J.J. McCarthy. He'll be in his second year, recovered from the meniscus injury that took him out this year. I could see the Vikings keeping Daniel Jones as their backup quarterback. He's not going to play. He's your backup. He's got experience. He's played in the system. So he'll be a much cheaper option than Sam Darnold. But if I was Daniel Jones, I'd consider doing that because I think Kevin O'Connell's as good a coach as any to learn under. So something to think about for the Vikings. I could see them going that way. For Sam Darnold, I look at the Jets. I don't know if he'll want to go back there, but if they're offering the right money, maybe. But the Jets, I think, are certainly in that mix. I would look at possibly the Colts, possibly Seattle. I think the Giants are going to draft a quarterback, so they came to mind, but I think they won't go with the veteran model. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because I don't think Cam Ward or Shador are necessarily ready 100% to be NFLers, but Giants, Jets, there's some options. There's some teams that just, quite frankly, don't have good quarterback situations. That's why the Colts might go, well, they have Anthony Richardson. Well, Anthony Richardson doesn't look like a good NFL quarterback. So I don't know if I really want him on my team. Steelers option, Sam Darnold. I'd rather have Darnold than have Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, quite frankly. Dolphins. Dolphins is a pseudo backup quarterback. Not a crazy thing. Tua gets hurt every 5 minutes. Be expensive, but you never know. Saints, don't go there. Jacksonville, probably not. Patriots, no. Raiders, definitely. Raiders could be that team. Cleveland, potentially. So there's some options for him. I think he'll be good chance he's a starting quarterback for a team next year. I think he proved enough that he's a starting quarterback. Maybe not an elite one, but he can start and be on a good team. But again, if I'm him, be smart. Don't go to an awful team with a bad situation with bad wide receivers. You just had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Those two guys are pretty damn good. I was going to talk some NHL draft. Craig Button came out with a piece that was interesting, but we'll do that next week. UFC 311 this weekend, Intuit Dome, Los Angeles, California. This event is headlined by a rematch between Islam Makhachev and Arman Tsarukyan. These two guys met a couple of years ago. Arman stepped in short notice, fought Islam, and it was a split decision, very close fight. Islam's been champion. His last fight was against Dustin Poirier in June, submitted him in the 5th round. He fought Volkanovski twice in 2023, won the title in October of 2022, submitting Charles Oliveira. So Islam's one of the pound for pound best in the world, but Arman is great as well. He beat Charles Oliveira at UFC 300 in a classic fight. He beat Beneil Dariush. Before that, he's very talented on the ground. The two headline fights could be defined more by what happens on the ground more than what happens on the feet. Right now, you have Islam minus 350, Arman plus 285 on FanDuel. These two guys are both extremely talented. These two guys could both finish the other. But to me, Islam's so strong. He's so crafty on the ground. He can get into different positions so smooth. He did that against Dustin Poirier. He can find a choke when you least expect it. And he just drains the life out of you when you're fighting him. And Arman's great. And Arman fought Charles and nearly lost that fight. And again, Islam defeated Charles rather easily. I like Islam to retain his title, the 155-pound lightweight title, because to me he's the best lightweight in the world, and he's one of the best fighters, just period, in the world right now. Co-main event, Merab Dvalishvili defends his bantamweight title for the first time since winning it in September against Umar Nurmagomedov. Interesting thing. Khabib Nurmagomedov is Umar's cousin. Khabib will be in the corner for Umar and for Islam, because Islam is one of his best friends and they both train in Dagestan together. It's all a family. It's an interesting, because Umar's 18-0, but he's had one really top-notch fight, and that was against Corey Sandhagen, who he beat in August in Saudi Arabia. Fun fight. Won 4 rounds to 1, and Sandhagen is no joke. Sandhagen's very good. But Merab's best of the best. Defeated Sean O'Malley quite easily. He's constant pressure. He's always attacking you, never letting you breathe. He will shoot for takedown after takedown. Petr Yan in their fight stuffed 10 takedowns. Merab still had 14 in the fight because he just constantly comes at you. Umar is great. Probably a future champion. But the fact that Umar is a favorite going into this, it tells you they don't respect Merab. Minus 330, Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar's never had somebody like Merab get on that bike and just pressure him the entire fight. If this fight goes deeper, 5 rounds, it goes into the favor of Merab Dvalishvili, because he is a guy that just doesn't get tired. Just comes at you. I like Merab plus 240 to retain his title as the betting underdog. He's just a great fighter, and he knows how to get it done. He's been in these wars. I got him winning. The third fight on the card, light heavyweight fight. 2 guys that don't really like each other. They've had history. They were supposed to fight for the title a number of years ago. Jiri Prochazka fighting Jamal Hill. Winner of this fight could be the next contender for the light heavyweight title. Jamal has had a couple serious injuries. He fought Alex UFC 300, got knocked out cold. Jiri Prochazka has not fought since UFC 303, where he was knocked out with a head kick from Alex Pereira. So both these guys have been starched by the champion. Yuri's at plus 100, Jamal Hill minus 130. Jiri is a guy that likes to fight with his hands down. He said he's been training with his hands up. I'm happy to hear that. I hope that comes to fruition. I think Jamal Hill is going to win this fight. I think Jamal Hill is going to knock out Prochazka. Jamal could take this to the ground. He's extremely aggressive. He's just a big guy in the cage. He could easily be a heavyweight. I like Jamal Hill to get back in the win column against Jiri Prochazka. Beneil Dariush, Renato Money Moicano. I like Moicano minus 184. Moicano's on a roll. He's feeling it. Said he can't afford to lose. He's a funny guy. I love him. Kevin Holland, always game, fighting Renier de Ridder. De Ridder's second fight in the UFC since coming over from a promotion in Asia, won championship. It's a pick'em fight. -113, -113. De Ridder didn't look awesome against Gerald Meerschaert at times. Look, he might lose that fight. I'd lean Kevin Holland because Kevin Holland's he's got that dog in him. Other fun fights: Gelton Almeida fighting Sergey Spivak, two heavyweights, two guys that don't mind taking the fight to the ground. Almeida had a couple setbacks. He lost to Curtis Blades, but this guy's so lethal on the ground, so strong. I like him beating Spivak. He's a pretty sizable favorite at -440. It's a stack card. The prelims are good. The early prelims are good. New arena in Los Angeles. So I'm stoked for UFC 311 on Saturday night. You have that and the football. And I think Toronto's playing Montreal that night. Care less about that, but it's fun, sure. But should be a great weekend. That's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the support, as always. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday to recap everything that goes on this weekend. Until then, take care. I'm your host, Noah Warren, and this is the Live and Learn podcast.